Karoline Leavitt is Donald Trump's White House press secretary. She is willing to lie to no end. She is willing to say anything she needs to say in order to defend MAGA and defend Trump and defend the right wing. And this morning, Karoline Leavitt appeared on Fox News and she was asked about the Michigan shooting in which a Trump T-shirt wearing, Trump lawn sign having, anti-vax, anti-abortion Trump supporter shot up a Mormon church. All political violence is unacceptable. Of course, it just so happens this was a right-winger. And Karoline Leavitt is going with it was an attack on Christians line that Donald Trump floated on his Truth Social. Important to remember that they only consider Mormons Christian when convenient. This is absolutely one of those times.
The FBI director tell you about the shooter? What do we know?
What we know at this point in time is that he was a member of this Michigan community, that he is a veteran of our United States Armed Forces. He served in the United States Marine Corps in Iraq. His family is cooperating with the FBI, and so they are currently trying to dig in and get to the bottom of why he committed this heinous act of violence. It's unfathomable. And as the president rightfully put in his Truth Social yesterday, this appears to be yet another targeted attack on Christians. And the Trump administration.
Notice how she says, we have no idea of the motive at this time, but it seems like the motive was to attack Christians. When she says this appears to be a targeted attack on Christians, she is speaking to motive. But at the same time, she says, let's not assume anything about motive. What she means is, don't assume anything about motive if it points to being a right winger, but assume that the motive was targeting Christians if that points to it being a left winger.
Is fully committed to not only investigating these crimes, but prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law, but also working very hard to prevent them, to see if there's red flags. The FBI is going to treat those as public safety emergencies and investigate them to try to prevent such violence from taking place in our country.
So she's checking all of the boxes. She's talking about the individual without mentioning any of the right-wing credentials, any of the right-wing social media history, the Trump lawn sign, the Trump T-shirt, the anti-vax, the anti-Gretchen Whitmer. She doesn't mention any. So box number one has been checked by Karoline Leavitt. What a good job she's doing, right? Number two, while saying we need to wait for motive, if you're going to assume anything that's not good for Trump on motive, she says, it seems pretty clear that this was an individual targeting Christians. I believe the shooter was also a Christian, not a Mormon, but a Christian. And so if this is a religious violence, it's Christian on Christian violence in that sense. And then also the bigger picture of never acknowledging the gun aspect to this. They will ultimately end up with whatever this guy's political beliefs, whatever this guy's religious beliefs. This is simply a lone nut job. That is all that this is. They then get on to the issue of the government shutdown. Now, the other day I heard two older ladies talking about this at a coffee shop, and I was disturbed by what they said. I'm going to tell you in a moment. Here is Karoline Leavitt starting to sort of say, hey, it's Democrats that are going to shut down the government. Take a listen to this.
Because the overwhelming majority of the American public wants to keep the government open. I mean, it's not even close. Democrats and Republicans, independents across the country want the government funded because they want our military and our troops to be paid. They want TSA agents and Border Patrol to be paid. They want food assistance programs for women and children in impoverished communities to continue going out the door. All of that will come to an end if Democrats vote against this clean CR that Republicans are proposing. And might I just add, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are on the record multiple times in their past political lives stating that they too believe a government shutdown is bad. In fact, I quote, Chuck Schumer just last year in 2024 said a shutdown would mean chaos and pain and needless heartache for the American people. Well, we hope that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats won't cause chaos and pain and heartache. We want our country to continue to be funded. We want our government to be open so we can continue doing the business of the American people.
Now, this, of course, would be yet another Republican shutdown. When you control the White House, when you control the Senate, when you control the House, how are you blaming Democrats for the shutdown? It doesn't make any sense. Now, what's interesting is that the shutdowns are more about who gets blamed. And this has been the case for a long time. We've covered these chronic government shutdowns in the United States for a very long time. The other day I was at a coffee shop and I'm sitting there quietly typing, doing my work. And there's two ladies, probably in their, upper 60s, early 70s, talking. And I hear that they're talking about politics. I hear that they're talking about news. They both go, I'm not a Republican. No, neither am I. But, right? It's sort of that conversation. And then one of the women goes, and now Democrats are going to shut down the government. Now, it occurred to me to go over and say, excuse me, ladies, how are you? I just happened to overhear that you were saying Democrats might be shutting down the government. I'm just curious, given that Donald Trump is in the White House and Republicans control the Senate and Republicans control the House, I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm curious, how did you come to the conclusion that Democrats are going to be the ones shutting down the government? I didn't do that. And when I mentioned this to producer Pat on the bonus show, he said, yeah, I would not have gotten myself involved in that conversation. And that was my instinct. I just looked right back down and went back to typing with my paws on the on my laptop. But it reminded me that reality, that perception is reality, rather, and that a lot of this entire shutdown game is who gets the blame at the end of the day. And they are working really hard to make it so that it is Democrats who are blamed. Finally, Karoline Leavitt going back to the shooting and saying there's just so much that we don't know about the shooting, but the FBI is so awesome. Just like they got Charlie Kirk's shooter, which, of course, the guy turned himself in.
And they are trying to understand more about this, how premeditated it was, how much planning went into it, whether he left a note. All of those questions have yet to be answered, but certainly will be answered by the FBI. I think the American people in your audience can be assured. Look at the great work that the FBI did in light of, or in the hours and days following the assassination, on Charlie Kirk's life.
Right. In the days and hours, within minutes, Kash Patel tweeting out, we've got the suspect in custody, which, by the way, wasn't true. And ultimately, the suspect turned himself in. If that doesn't give you confidence, then I don't know what will. I don't have a cat myself, but many friends and family do. And lately, they have all been talking about Smalls. So when Smalls came on as a sponsor, I wanted to learn more. Smalls is a fresh take on cat food because their recipes are protein packed, made with ingredients you would actually recognize from your own fridge. No preservatives, nothing artificial, real food made for cats. That's why Cats.com and Forbes both named it best overall cat food. Friend of mine recently mentioned their cat seems excited when the Smalls boxes show up. They tried putting it side by side with the old food. The cat went straight for Smalls, which is a pretty good sign. For a limited time, my audience gets 60% off your first Smalls order plus free shipping. Just go to smalls.com and use the code Pakman. The link is in the description.